Hello BookTube, I'm Jonathan, and today I'm going to be talking about the second book in the Hyperion Cantos, The Fall of Hyperion, which is probably the most controversial book in the series, so if you have read it, let me know what you think. I really want to hear your thoughts because I'm firmly in one camp. I'm not going to say which one yet, but I have strong feelings about this book, and if you haven't read it, stick around and I'll let you know whether you might like it, what type of readers it might suit, and whether you should keep going on with the series. So, this is going to be a spoiler-free review, so we're going to pick up with where Hyperion left off, but I'm going to leave that vague just in case you haven't read Hyperion yet, and you just want to kind of go through the whole series before you decide whether you want to pick it up. So, after Hyperion, we follow on with the Pilgrims in a completely different structure from the first book. The first book is kind of famous for its structure. The Canterbury Tales style, where we have individual short stories that follow each of the pilgrims, and then things kind of move slowly through the present timeline. Well, we have a completely different structure for the Fall of Hyperion, which was pretty divisive amongst the Hyperion community. I won't spoil too much, but essentially we have a cybrid character which is able to provide perspectives both on Hyperion with the pilgrims, as well as with the CEO of the hegemony of man, Mina Gladstone. Now, a lot of people like this, didn't like this. Personally, it didn't bother me too much. It was different, it was a bit of a change, and it did take about 100 pages for the book to really get going, which, when it's the second book in the series, setting up the state of play, setting up the board, I feel like should have been done in the first book. When you finish the first book, you kind of want to just hit the ground running with the second one, and yet there's a new character, there's more setup, so I understand why people didn't love that. But once it got going, I really enjoyed it, and I actually like that setup because, first of all, any progression with the Pilgrims in the present timeline was a welcome surprise for me. The time tombs, traveling backwards through time, the Shrike, this scary looking dude, alright? I wanted to know more about them, whatever format you give it to me, whatever the structure, I just wanted to learn more. I was so engrossed in it. And secondly, Mina Gladstone's a fantastic character. The way she interacts with the politics, the rest of the universe, I thought was really enthralling. Very interesting, unique character, strong character. And I think it was important to connect the two, because although the story of the Pilgrims are personal stories, and I really enjoy getting to know them on a personal level, the ideas in Hyperion are so big that I felt like it was important that we connected that to the rest of the universe. So I actually didn't mind going between those two storylines. I liked how the sci-fi ideas and concepts affected individual people and this wonderful world that Dan Simmons built on a larger scale as well. And also was a clever way for him to interweave the Keats influence on the narrative. I'm not very familiar, but reading these books definitely wanted to make me check out more writings from him. So, in terms of some of the concepts, as I said, I'm not going to get too much into the plot, but some of the ideas, some of the things that Dan created in the first book, one of them was the technocore. I really wanted to get into that because this is one of the most fascinating aspects of the book for me. I love AI, artificial intelligence, androids, cybrids, all that kind of stuff is super interesting to me. Detroit Become Human, random PS4 game plug for you there. Absolutely love it. So there was a scene with the Technocore sequence, which I think is one of my favorite things that I've ever read of all time. The way the different factions of the Technocore work on both a sort of motivational level and also a technical level was so engaging to me. There is a concept introduced in the book called the void which binds. And I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say this changed me as a person. I think the way that Dan Simmons articulated a physical representation of what connects every living being and everything in the universe spoke so directly to me. I was floored. I felt this is why you read, guys. This is the kind of thing that you delve into, and not only is it an escape, but it's like it's an enriching experience. I think Dan Simmons has really achieved something absolutely special with this book. That was definitely one of the highlights. Some of the other things that you might have wanted to learn more about from the Hyperion like the Tree of Pain, the Time Tombs, the Templar Brotherhood, the Ousters, the Shrike. You definitely get a lot more of that in the Fall of Hyperion. Some of those are left a little open-ended, I won't say which, but one which was super satisfying to me was the Ousters. So they are the modified humans that live on the outer planets outside of the hegemony of man. And there is a scene where we meet the Ousters, and Dan Simmons' prose just really flourishes here. This was an absolute ride. The pictures that he painted was glorious, and the interaction with the Ousters was absolutely fascinating. These humans, kind of former humans that are now living a different way of life, both culturally and physically, with the technology, the way they've modified their bodies, was such an interesting engagement between the two cultures. I was hooked the entire time. So, moving on from them to the character endings, of course I'm not going to say specifically what happened, but I was pretty satisfied with each of them. There's some triumphant moments, there's some painful moments. Man, the Tree of Pain, being quite literal there, some of those sequences were quite tough to read. This is some pretty heavy stuff. There's, as I mentioned in the first book, there's a lot of elements going on in the world of Hyperion. You have your sci-fi elements, you have your religious, philosophical elements, technological, and some horror sequences, I would say, too. I wouldn't say it's out and out horror. I'm not a horror person myself, but some of the things with the Shrike and the Tree of Pain really kind of had me on the edge of my seat. Or bed. I usually read in bed at night, to be honest. But that's not the expression. It had me on the edge of my bed. People don't say that. Anyway, yes, one of them in particular, I'm not going to say exactly what happened, but there's a reason why this picture right here is on the cover. It's going to be behind me on the green screen. Absolutely phenomenal. The way that plays out, the Scholar's Tale was probably my favorite tale from Hyperion, and it might be, the conclusion to that tale might be my favorite in the Fall of Hyperion. I think that was truly jaw-dropping stuff. So if you two were hooked by Sol and his daughter, I think you're really going to love what happens in the Fall of Hyperion. Is every ending as satisfying? Maybe not. There is a confrontation at the end which didn't quite build to perhaps what I expected or wanted it to. It is a little bit open-ended, which is not my personal favorite. I'll go ahead and say, if you read the following books in the series, Endymion and the Rise of Endymion, there's some more hints. It'll push you further in that direction, but I don't think there's a 100% conclusive explanation in the series for that particular element. But yeah, this world is so big, the fact that you want to keep on digging to find those answers, I think is just evidence of, what a successful job Dan Simmons did with the sequel, which I know is kind of controversial. I know not everyone loved this book as much as Hyperion. I understand that they're very different. The structure is completely different. If something that drew you to Hyperion was the individual tales, the short story style, that is gone. So I understand that this book might not be for you. I understand that people might not appreciate a new character playing such a prominent role in the second book. To me, it makes sense because of the connection to Keats and the importance not just to Dan Simmons, but the world itself, Hyperion. So it didn't bother me, but I understand why that could be a roadblock for some people. And I understand that some of the endings being perhaps a little open could also bother people as well. But for me, none of that bothered me because of the highs of this book. I think the technology, the technocore, the Void Witch Binds, the Templar Brotherhood, the Ousters, this is everything that I want from a sci-fi book, both as an adventure journey, an emotional journey, a spiritual journey. Something that I think will should go down. I mean, it's already a classic, but for me, and hopefully for other people, other readers, go down in history as a sci-fi classic. So, the verdict, you probably guessed it, 10 out of 10. Top 5, top 10, I'll be doing a list at some point, but definitely near the top of my all-time favorite sci-fi books. Can't recommend it enough. The second part of the duology, we'll get on to Endymion and the Rise of Endymion in future videos, but for now, if you're thinking, should I check out Hyperion and the Fall of Hyperion? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for Endymion.